Hi, everybody. Welcome to January's Scout Circle. Here this month, we're going to be talking about winter camping, and so, of course, got to wear the gear. So, Clark, are you around?
Yeah, I can appear here in just a second when I do this magical thing.
Clark, ta-da!
Hey, I have my hat. You have your hat.
Excellent. Yes. Headgear is important for winter camping.
Absolutely.
So let's see. We took December off due to scheduling. Before that was November, was the last one, right? And
yeah.
That was a discussion about Webelos. Is that right?
Yeah.
I think that was correct. That was one where I was stuck in traffic, quite quite literally. And yeah. Doing hangouts from the phone probably isn't really the best way while you're trying to drive and things like that. So we've got things going on. What sort of things are going on?
Well, this is it's not our 12th Scout Circle, but it's a year, isn't it?
It's a year, yeah. Our first one was January last year. That was to talk about the whole STEM program thing for Scouts. Yeah, it's been an interesting year, a lot of fun for sure. We'll see how it turns out.
Well, we're going to by the time the February Scout Circle rolls around, I will have redesigned the site at Scoutmaster CG, and this is the Scout Circle is actually going to be right there on the site, and we're going to have a advanced, I hope, way of sharing the presentation with you and your ability to ask questions and kind of interact with the presentation. So that will happen before we go live in February.
Perfect.
And let me see. I'm sorry. I'm going to. We have a total transparency here. We let you know exactly what we're doing, folks.
Is that a good thing?
Because I'm going to unmute our guest now, and I don't know what'll happen next, but I am going to unmute him. There he is. He's up there in Canada. He's waving, and now, wait a minute.
Well.
I have to find the right button.
Oh, what? No.
Oh, I've done something terribly, terribly wrong. There it is. Okay. Wait a minute. There he is, and he's back, and he can talk now.
Okay, and to turn this thing off, I go like that. We're good?
Yeah.
So this is why we go winter camping.
Harlan, why don't you introduce our guest?
All right. So this is Kevin Callan. Kevin is also known as the Happy Camper, as you can tell. He's quite happy to be here. And we're going to be talking about winter camping and gear and why and all sorts of anything that comes up.
I'm not hearing anybody.
You're not hearing any of it?
That's because you're getting old.
We can hear you.
All right, everything's cool now. All right,
yeah? Okay.
All right.
Carry on,
because we said some bad things about you. We're making fun of that hat.
Oh, yeah. So Kevin is the author of the book Dazed and Confused, Tales of a Wilderness Wanderer, as well as, 13 other books, I think?
I got 15 books now.
15
I didn't want to die
books.
when I had 13 books, because that's bad luck.
Right, yes. So the last two were a cookbook, and this one that's Tales of a Wilderness Wanderer.
Yes.
And the top half is a shot with you and a canoe, and we talked about canoeing last time we had you on, and the bottom half is a bunch of snowshoes stuck in the snow, and so we figured that made you an expert on winter camping. So welcome.
Well, you know what an expert at winter camping is the person that's sane enough or insane enough to actually go.
To go, yes. And that was my first question for you. And speaking of questions, actually, if you have questions for us, tonight. The second half of the show, for the half hour, we're going to talk about equipment and things that we've kind of prearranged. But if you have specific questions around winter camping with Scouts, equipment questions, philosophical questions as they relate to winter camping, send them to clark@scoutcircle.org. I'm sure that the link, I haven't looked, but I bet the link is probably right there on the page at ScoutCircle, where hopefully you're watching this live. If you're not watching this live, well, I can't help you. There's nothing we can do. Yes, so Kevin is up in the Great White North in Ontario, just south of Algonquin, in Peterborough.
Peterborough, yep.
Peterborough?
Yep.
Okay.
It's so far north. I can't believe we got service.
The birthplace of the modern canoe, right? Is that what
it is? Well, supposedly. There's a controversy about that. Yeah, but the Peterborough canoe, just up the road from me.
Nice.
Yeah. And when I first moved to Peterborough in 1984, I had a Winona Sundowner, I think it was called, and they wouldn't let me join the canoe club. They said, that's not a canoe, it's not a canvas canoe, and you'll have to remove yourself from the club.
Wow.
Now, I'm allowed to join the club now, because things have changed.
Standards have been lowered.
Yeah.
So, winter camping involves less canoeing, more staying warm. And I will start with the question that I get most times when I tell people I'm going out with the Scouts, and if it's any time between about November and March in Colorado, the next question I get from someone that isn't a Scouter is why? Why do we go winter camping?
It's a really good question, though, because why? Because I remember, every single time I go, I just came back yesterday from a trip, and I remember getting to the parking area, getting out in the vehicle, and it was minus 25, and the wind was blowing across the forest. It was 4 feet of snow, and I was like, this is just silly. Like, why am I doing this? And I was nervous. I was worried that I didn't have the ability to, survive. And once I started hauling the toboggan across the snow, and I started sweating, and I started getting warm, and then, by the time I got back in my vehicle after a few days, I was in peace with winter. You're fine out there. As long as you're really smart about it. I wouldn't make your very first camping trip ever a winter camping trip. I would have a few summer camping trips or fall camp trips behind your belt first. But winter is a beautiful time. I think the biggest thing is there's so many people here in Canada especially that are so upset with the winter now. And I get, I shouldn't say this to everybody, but I get upset with them. I said, well, what do you expect? It's Canada, for heaven's sakes. And what do you want to do? Do you want to try and escape the winter blues by watching videos and staying inside the whole winter and hoping it goes away? Or are you going to rejoice it and go out and enjoy it?
Oh, I found after learning to get comfortable or stay comfortable when I'm out winter camping, it's actually my favorite time of year to go camping. And the number one reason is no bugs.
Oh yeah, you don't see anybody wearing one of these out there in the wintertime. Like, remember, okay, everybody says, oh, I just can't wait till the spring comes so I can go on a canoe trip. Remember the bug jacket? There's no bugs, and the black bears are asleep, or somewhat asleep, so they're not going to kill you. So you're good.
No bears, no bugs. Well, I guess polar bears, right? If you go venture far enough north, you got that problem. But no bears and no bugs. And the other thing is it's very peaceful. It's quiet. Right? It's very quiet. Yeah, I just 2 nights ago, it was midnight, and I heard a whole bunch of ruckus outside the tent. I was by myself, so when it was going on. Peeked outside, and there's 3 snowshoe hares running around, and well, I think they're making love. But anyway, but it was so neat to watch them, and all of a sudden it was almost like they looked at me like, oh, there's someone out here we did not know. And there was a full moon, and the stars were out, and then later on it started snowing in the morning, and I made coffee, and there were some wolves howling and yapping, and then I started hauling the toboggan through the snow, and the wolves were howling again, and at night I heard a lot of owls. I saw lots of tracks. I saw a moose. I saw some deer. And no one else in the right mind would be out there, so I'm by myself. So that's a good thing. You know, the tracks are a good point. I mean, a lot of times in the summertime, if there were animals around, if you didn't actually see them, you don't. There's no sign that they were ever there, right?
Well, you never know. Yeah, there's so many stories on the snow, and it's like reading a book. You wake up in the morning and I look at the tracks around my tent, and I knew exactly what happened and who was around my tent at night. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and in the summer you wouldn't know. You know? Yeah. You could make up stories and say there was 10 bears around the tent, but yeah, I remember a couple of nights ago I was hearing this clop, clop, clop through the hemlock bush, and I was wondering if it was a deer or a moose, and sure enough, it was a moose that walked through the hemlock and where I was camped, and yeah, it's kind of neat to know that. You know, it was my daughter that got me out too. Recently I'd just been on a lot of TV here in Canada trying to get people outdoors, and my 9-year-old daughter said, "You know, Dad, you haven't done that yet this year either, right?" So she was kind of saying, well, you better do what you say.
Well, if you're going to tell everybody else to go, for sure.
Oh, man, but it was during that cold snap that you guys had. You must have had the cold snap we did. It was getting to the -30s, and nobody in their right mind wanted to go. But it's -20 degrees Celsius is really not that cold when you're dealing with good, you know, if you have the good clothing, good equipment, good knowledge. When it's really cold is when I was coming back, it was only 0 degrees and rainy. I wanted to get out of the bush. I did not want to be there because that's when you're going to get hypothermia.
Sure, they get soaking wet at that point, and it goes through the whole deal. Yeah. So if you've got questions, I'm going to remind you again. If you got questions, send them to Clark, CLARKE at ScoutCircle.org, and he'll funnel them through. He'll edit out all the obscene ones because we do have a Canadian guest this time, so you have to be polite. And we will we'll get them, do our best to get them answered for sure. So as we dive into this, I guess, what do you need? What do you need to go camping in the wintertime when it's below freezing?
Well, what are you going to sleep in? So there's 2 options. Well, there's 3 options, really. There's the Quincy of the snow cave. You can make that. Or actually, there's 4 options now. A lot of people are doing the hammock winter camping. And that's a different style altogether. So the Quincy, the hammock tenting, and then the 4-season tenting. All those 3, you need really good winter gear and sleeping bags. But the 4-season tent, the difference between a 4-season and a 3-season is that it's got a lot more ventilation. So when you're breathing inside the tent, all those crystals from your breath isn't falling on your sleeping bag and getting your sleeping bag wet. So a lot more ventilation. It's also got stronger poles for snow load. Okay. And it's a little bit more money. Now, I've changed from that, maybe because I'm 50 now, and maybe because I'm a little bit more wiser, but I use what's called a hot tent. And a hot tent is like a prospector canvas tent with a wood stove inside. The wood stove is basically a heat source. So you can be, traveling through the bush all day, and you're going to be warm traveling, and then you get camp set up, get the prospector tent tent up with a stove inside, and then it's 80 degrees Fahrenheit inside that tent at night. It's beautiful. You get wood going, and you sit around, have a cup of tea, and talk to friends, and have a game of crib, read a book, and you can live out there. Like a couple years ago, I spent over a month doing that, and it was fine. Never got cold.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, and as they say, if you've got a wood stove, then you chop your own wood, and it warms you twice. It does.
I was thinking about that the other day, too, because going by yourself, I love solo tripping, but solo winter tripping is a lot of work. I was thinking maybe I should get some more friends. But, and you have to camp in a swamp. You don't camp anywhere where you usually would camp in the summer because it's too exposed to the wind. There's no firewood because everybody's chopped it all down. So basically what I did is I went into the swamp areas, camped right in the swamp area, and then cut those deadheads down and then chopped all those up, and they were fine. They're great wood. What you sleep in is important too. Like you have to get a good thermarest underneath you. If you're in an area that is not well traveled, I would cut boughs down, hemlock boughs, go around the base of a conifer tree, put those down. Then I put a tarp down. The other thing too is I got this here for you. A sleeping bag. Now here's a problem about winter camping. This is where expenses come to be, right? So here's a sleeping bag. It's by Nemo, and I just got it. It's minus 30 degrees. What would it be for you guys? It'd be minus 20. It's minus 30 degrees
So it's...
Yeah, that's 20 degrees below for you guys, right? Or is the opposite? It's cold.
Yeah, it's cold.
And this thing is really good. It's going to keep you really warm. Nemo makes a good sleeping bag, but it's a down bag. It's got goose down in it. It's got a little collar around to keep you warm. But it's going to cost you $500. I mean, I think the cheapest winter bag is $300. So here's some options. You can rent one from a store, an outfitting store. A good one's going to be able to rent one for $30 for the weekend. And what I do there is I make my own liner and put a liner in there, so when I get, when I finish the trip, I can wash the liner and not worry about the sleeping bag. Or I could find some friends that go winter camping a lot and borrow from them. Join an outdoor club, and you can meet a lot of nice people, but also get to borrow their gear.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing about it. Going to buy a $500 sleeping bag just to go out for one weekend. You might want to rethink that. What you also could do is get, what my buddy did last year, he got 3 fall bags and put them together. Okay. Now that's a lot of weight and bulk, but the other thing too is, I have it here, is, I can't find it. It's a thing by Adventure Medical Kit. It's one of those bivy bags, those emergency bivy bags that reflects the heat.
Sure, yeah.
So I put one of those in a fall bag and a summer bag put together, and you'll be fine as long as it's not past -10, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, most of the work that I've noticed as far as staying warm at night is a matter of insulating you from the ground as much as it is from what's on top. So bringing an extra wool blanket or two and putting them underneath you seems to help quite a bit.
Yeah, the one thing I swear I had everything all ready for you. Well, the one thing I used the other night, I found it here, is it's a thermarest, but it's one of those ones you blow up.
Okay.
Right? Yep. And you turn blue while doing it. You pass out and then wake up and keep blowing it. But it gets you about this much off the surface, so that's important. I also put a yoga mat underneath me and get that insulation pad that you would get at the home hardware store. So there's a good chunk of space between you and the snow, because the snow is cold, and you don't want to sleep on snow because that's just silly.
So there's a bunch of equipment, a lot of bulk in a lot of these things. But one thing to keep in mind is, especially if you're traversing over snow and things like that, you can pull it along as opposed to having to hump it on your back, I guess. So. Yeah,
and that's the thing. Is like, so if you're doing the 4-season tent or the hammock tenting, you can actually put everything in the backpack if you want. But really, when you're going out for the winter for a long period of time, get yourself a freight toboggan or make yourself your own a pulk sled, it's called.
Yep.
What you do is I borrowed my daughter's without her knowing. It's just her sled that she uses for sledding. And I got 2 PCP pipes, the plastic pipes, and I crossed them and I attached them with some rope and drilled a hole through don't tell my daughter. Anyway, and then I just pulled that and I got a hip harness from one of my old backpacks and took that off and attached that onto the PCP pipes. And I got a video on my Happy Camper site that shows how to make one. It'll cost you basically $5. And now I have a freight toboggan now that I've made, and it's from that material that is around the hockey rink, that plastic board, and it slips across the snow a lot nicer. But yeah, because I bring a lot of stuff.
Well, yeah, you might as well be comfortable if you're going to go spend a few days out in the woods, for sure. Yeah.
One thing about eating out there, though, you have to remember, and learn by experience. Things freeze, so when you bring eggs, that's not a good idea. Because they're so it doesn't work. I brought you think last year my buddy goes, "Oh, what do we got tonight?" I go, "Well, I've got a nice salad." And he starts looking at me, he goes, "It's -30." So the salad was frozen and brown. So yeah, so when you're out in the winter, you got to think that. What we usually do is make a bunch of like stews and lasagnas, and I'll use the Dutch oven too to cook on top of the stove, and I just thaw it out and make a good meal that way.
For sure, yeah, and you eat a lot, right? Because the calories keep you warm, and the warm food, it makes you more comfortable. There's a lot to it. You don't want to be out there eating Pop-Tarts and ramen, for sure.
No, don't go and say I'm going to go winter camping so I can go on a diet. Don't do that. You'll die.
You'll die, yes, for sure. So I have a note from Clark that in addition to sending your questions to Clark, CLARKE at ScoutCircle.org, as we get to that part of the program, he also says to remind people to tell us where you're at, because obviously this is going to impact a bit of the advice, right? If you're in Florida, winter camping is a little bit different than if you live in Ontario. And perhaps a polk sled won't be quite as useful if you're just outside of Tampa Bay or something like that. But yes, if you have questions, by all means send them in to Clark and include where you're at, so we can talk about that. So yeah, let's see what else we got. If we've got concerns, what are, as far as concerned parents, what are some essential things that you want new campers to know?
Yeah, if you go winter camping, well, you go camping at all, you should bring some devices. I swear I had everything all organized here. What I would do is, okay, I don't need to show it, but there's emergency devices you can bring with you. There's a spot device. Yep. There's and actually Iridium makes InReach as well. It's the same sort of idea, except actually yep. You can have someone send you a signal as well. There's satellite phones. You don't have to buy those, or your club could buy. You know what your club could do is buy one of those for about $250, and it costs you about $100 a year to keep it going through the computer program. How a spot works, for example, you push the button, and the other night I pushed it and said, "I'm okay," and my mom and my wife and my daughter and everybody else that knows me got a thing on email and text message saying Kevin Callan is here and he's okay. So everybody's fine and I'm fine.
Yep.
If I need help, I push 911. If I need really a lot of help, SOS. What you could do is in the club you could buy one of those and start renting it out to other clubs and making money back.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did. I shouldn't say that, but that's how I made some money. Satellite phones. I found a lot of stores. I'm not sure about where you guys are, but a lot of outdoor stores, you can't rent those satellite phones. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not going to buy a satellite phone if I'm only going to go on one trip a year.
For sure.
But what I did is I bought the satellite phone for $250, and I rent that out and make some money as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling everybody, this is how I make my money. I pay my mortgage by renting out my satellite phone. Being safe, though, make sure the leaders actually have a lot of skill sets behind them, and what I would call the old Scottish "dinna be stupid." The idea is have some logic behind it. Mm-hmm. If those kids don't have the equipment, get some for them. Like don't. And you know what? Youth today will survive through a lot. I take a lot of youth out on a lot of trips, and they're a lot tougher than me. I'm 50 years old, but the thing is about it is what happens on a trip with me is that they don't have the bush time.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure the leaders have a lot of bush time. And what I would really suggest out there is getting a lot of people out. Get a lot of people out for many days, and that'll give you bush time. Like the other day when it was getting cold and stuff like that, I knew how to layer and get warm. I didn't panic, right? So mm-hmm. Here's for example. This is what I wear going across the ice. Okay, it's one of those anoraks.
Mm-hmm.
It's a canvas thing you wear over your merino wool. Use merino wool, like I use Wool Power a lot, and the anorak, and then you're not going to sweat, and it could be 30 below, and the wind chill being major, and you're going to be warm. So it makes a huge difference. The other thing is I wear these with my moccasins. So these are mucklucks.
Mucklucks, all right. Yep.
Yeah, and what I do is I have those felt liners that you just get at the hardware store like that. Mm-hmm. But I bring 2 or 3 pair. So this is what's nice about the hot tent is I can dry these things at night. That's a huge difference between hot tenting and cold camping. I'm able to dry my stuff out at night. Huge difference. Because as soon as things get wet, you're done. Right? We're not done. But But yeah, and the other thing too is with boots. This is how you're going to save yourself. These things are $2 at the store. These are the liners for the bottom of your boot. No, the boots aren't going to come with these. Buy these things for $2, and they're going to keep you a lot warm.
Okay.
What else? Now I'll wear boots like this as well. These are, you know, regular winter boots.
Yep.
But the other thing I have this, like, have you ever watched Mr. Dress-Up's Tickle Trunk? That's exactly what I got going down here.
I'm thinking it looks an awful lot like some of my scouts. You know, they go rummaging through their stuff and they pull up random things every once in a while. Yeah, it's looking very familiar, actually.
But
these I've not seen before. What do you got here?
These are, what do they call it, Neos. And you can get these Army surplus stores, whatever. This is what my mail service guy wears. And they're over boots. So I wear these over either my mucklucks, or I can wear these over my regular boots. And again, it's not when it's cold is the problem. It's when it's warm and slushy. So it's warm and slushy, I'm going across the ice, and my feet are going to get wet. That's when problems are going to happen, right? So I'm wearing these waterproof Neos over my boots, and they fit really nice on my snowshoe. With that, then yeah, everything's fine. I think the only danger really out in the winter camping with youth, a lot of now this is going to cause a debate here. In the summertime, I use it, like, again, I take a lot of youth out. I stopped using or bringing axes with youth. And the reason why is 14-year-old boys have a tendency to say they know what they're doing with an axe, and all of a sudden there's an axe injury. And when there's an axe injury, it's a major injury. Like, it's a fly out, there's something, it's not nice. But with a bush saw, in the summertime, you can go through a summer trip with a bush saw like this. Well, whatever. But a bush saw, and then you can dress that wound. It's not going to be life-threatening. With an axe, it could be. But in the wintertime, here's the thing. You need an axe because you need to get to the dry wood in the middle of the log, and you need a lot of wood. And that's what's going to keep you warm. So I bring a maul axe, and I bring a forestry axe, right? You can show them all how to safely use an axe, but I would say if you really want to watch over them, like I'm Mr. Paranoid, but if I let one of my students use an axe, I'm standing there watching them all the time. Okay. Because as soon as, and not to put males down, but as soon as a male boy says, I know what I'm doing, they don't know what they're doing.
All right, so we're about halfway through. Actually, really fast.
Sorry, I'm blabbing.
As
I've been out solo winter camping for a few days. I haven't talked to anybody.
It's the first people you've talked to in days. Yeah, so let me start going through some of these. We obviously threw a bunch of equipment out there. The good place to start would be, how about bargain ways or ways to find bargains, I guess, as we go through some of these. Is there places that you can make gear that works for winter camping, or is it really a matter of going out and finding all these things and putting them together?
No, I think for your group, for example, I'm talking a lot about hot tenting and using a prospector stove and tent, and that's going to cost you a lot of money. Like, Snow Trucker to me is one of the best tents ever made. They're made in the United States, and it's a really lightweight canvas tent design, but they're going to cost you $1,000+, right? So what I would suggest is buy one used, and then let everybody borrow it or rent it out. Okay. And for example, the first Snow Trucker tent I bought, 4 of my friends went in on it. It cost us all about $250 each, and then we all borrow it or go together. That's how we made it affordable. Yeah. A stove like this. This is a little stove I put inside my tent. It's made by Muskrat Metalworks. It's going to cost you $150, maybe $200. Yeah. But you can make one of those if you want. In fact, that'd be a really good project for the Scouts to work on in the fall, is making their own metal stoves. You can find on YouTube a whole bunch of ways to make it.
Yeah, snowshoes are another big one that comes up that way as well.
Oh yeah, so yeah, these were made. This is a course. This is a course that Lure of the North made these, whatever. But you can actually make your own snowshoes. This is made out of fishing line.
Oh, wow, nice.
And that binding is lamp wick oil, lamp wick that you buy at the store that's cost nothing.
Oh, nice. Okay.
These are made. These are homemade. Okay. So
nice. Yeah.
That's something that you can create a program for the kids to actually do that, and it's a lot more fun. In fact, it would be a great evening for them to do that. Make their own fire starters.
Yeah.
Like this here, like you need good fire starters. Birch bark is good, but this is actually a whole bunch of that material that's on the bottom of your wine boxes and your vegetable boxes with paraffin wax in it. Now, this company here makes them like that. It's I forget what they're called. Instaflame. But yeah, you can make those, and that would be a good night with them making all those.
So let me go through a couple of these other questions. Todd Archer, I'm not sure if I've got where Todd's from. Todd asked the question of, what about military sleep system bags? Have you seen much of that?
Yeah, that's a good way. Mind you, I went to the Army Surplus store the other day. I got a really good wool shirt I bought 3 of those because they were like $7 each, and they're amazing shirts to keep warm. But I wanted to get their felt liners for boots, which are really good too. I got those cheap. But their Army Surplus sling bags, even though they're really good, they're bulky, but they were a pretty good price actually. But if you can get them cheap, yeah, I'd grab one of those. The one disadvantage of the Army Surplus sling bags that I've seen is they're really big, so you got to compact them in a small size. So I would use them for hot tenting, so you've got a toboggan to pull your stuff. But if you're able to get those, they're great. What else? If you can get 2 fall bags with a liner inside, that's just as big and bulky and just as good, probably. That'll save you some money.
Yep, we've got. Let's see. I'm not sure who this one came from, but this might be Clark actually. I bought a Browning Denali -30 degree bag, wide mummy bag for about $150. So you can find them out there if you.
$150? Where do you get that?
That's a good question. They don't have that part. Let's see. So Brian Fay might be the one that answers that question. So
if I can interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
Because we're doing this with this crazy chat feature on here.
Yes.
The $150 Denali sleeping bag. That was John Dyer.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure, right?
Okay.
Oh, no, that was Brian Fay. Sorry about that.
See? All right.
And then the other. Go ahead, Arlen. I'm going away now.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Well, it was nice talking to you, Clark.
I'll be back. I'll be back.
Be back for sure. Yeah. So, let's see. Any thoughts on helping scouts through a weekend of cold camping with some hiking on Saturday for a couple of hours? That question came from John Dyer. So yeah,
the one thing about taking youth out for the winter time too is, well, any time of the year, make them part of the trip. Don't be the leader and do everything for them. Make them part of the trip for sure. That's why my daughter, she's 9, why she likes outdoors so much. Ever since she was 6 weeks old, I made her do something out there. So, but make them part of the trip and don't try to do the "come on, follow me" boys. And that'll help out a lot. And make them not afraid of the cold. Again, their first time, don't make it a terrible ordeal for them, and don't go on distance too. That's a huge thing about winter. Don't go out for long distances. When you look at the map and say, "Hey, we've done that in the summer, we could do that in the winter," you will never. Like 2 days ago, I'm going through the bush and 4 feet of snow, 3 feet of snow, needed the snowshoes on, or I'd go up to my hips. And I was going to go to Bottle Lake, which would take me half a day of portaging and canoeing. I got 2 kilometers into the bush and said, "This looks good."
Good enough.
That's where I camped. It didn't matter. And it doesn't matter, to be quite honest. You're in the winter and it's nice and nobody's around.
It's a little bit misleading on snowshoes because you do have the snow that has made it so that you don't have so many obstacles to climb over necessarily, at least on some of the trails that we have here as far as fallen fallen trunks and things like that. A lot of them are snowed in, and you kind of just cruise over top. But at the same time, it's a lot of work on snowshoes. So you don't want to shoot for 10 miles a day for sure.
No, and actually make it part of, like, for example, instead of a journey and push, every couple hours or every 3 hours, stop for what's called a boil up. And I spent a lot of time in northern Quebec and northern Ontario, northern Quebec especially with the Cree, traveling in the wintertime, and learn from them. To them, summer is not a nice time. It's buggy. Winter is their time to travel, and I learned so much from them. They disliked the off season, which to them was the spring and summer. And what they would do is do a boil up, and they would actually make sure they would fresh water, but if they use snow for water for their tea, they would make sure there's a little bit of water first, fresh water in the pot, and then put snow, because if you put snow right in the pot, it'll taste burnt. And what I use a lot is that you've probably seen these things here called a Kelly kettle.
Ah, perfect. John Dyer just had that question. That was gonna be the next one I asked you about.
Oh, okay. Was my boil up.
Using Kelly kettles for hot water and their use. So
yeah, you got to say it a Kelly kettle because it's from Ireland. It's a Kelly kettle, and it's been used since the 1800s. But basically, what it is that you get the fire going in the base, and then the fire shoots up like a chimney up through the top, and the water is around the perimeter. So that's why it boils a lot quicker than actually if you're just boiling it like a pot on the base. And so every few hours, I'll put a little bit of water from my thermos that I've got from the morning, put it in my Kelly kettle, stuff a bit of snow in there, get a cup of tea going, or whatever stick stove you want to use. There's another thing you could do too is you can use a jet boil. It's the same idea, but you use butane, and that will get water boiling in a couple of minutes. And that will get warm liquids in you, get some good munchies, good nutrients in you, and then off you go again. And make that part of your experience.
Is that, you said every couple hours that you stop to
yeah, I wouldn't go more than 3 hours without a stop and rest and a boil up.
Okay, yeah.
So we're not going too far. In fact, we're on the trail by 8:30 in the morning. We're done way before 4. Because you need at least an hour or two to set up camp. Right. So you're not traveling that far.
Yeah, for sure. What about pocket warmers? Yeah, you see.
Oh yeah, those I got them from Santa this year.
Oh, excellent.
Santa, in my stocking. Those work. The other thing that works too is that you get a thermos or one of those Nalgene containers and put hot water in there and put it inside your sleeping bag at night. That will keep you warm for at least an hour or two. I've heated rocks in the late season, the fall, and put those in my sleeping bag, but you have to watch that. They might start a fire. Yeah. But but that works. So yeah, the pocket warmers work. I really watch those gadgety things though. The mitts that actually are battery operated or the jackets that are reflecting your heat. They all work. But they're not as good as what the ads say they are.
Sure, yeah.
Here's the thing.
A lot to be said for a wool shirt.
Well, wool is it. Like merino wool, I'm not sure if you know about merino wool. There's a wool shirt, sweater that your Nana has made you for Christmas, and you have to wear it to make her happy. But it's a big bulky thing. But merino wool is a different type of sheep, and it's very thin, and you do a layering system. So I love merino wool. Wool Power is one of the best out there. But that's a wool liner, right? Mm-hmm. Then I got another liner, like that, okay?
All right.
And then I've got my outside liner, like that. There's no way my hand is going to get cold there. And notice I'm not wearing a glove. I'm wearing a mitt. Because these things are really good for working around camp, but you can't keep your fingers warm if they're separate. Okay? You can keep your fingers warm if they're together and keeping themselves warm. So that's really good.
And they're great for a reenactment of a Christmas Story. The little kid. That's all. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh no, that's right. The other thing I got. Well, I just ripped my sleeping bag with my axe got out of control. Oh no, there's down everywhere now too. here's the thing. So here's my pillow I use at night.
Send the bill to Clark.
It's all Clark's fault. Here's a pillow I use at night, but this is what it is. This is a down jacket that comes out. Oh. Oh, in theory it comes out. All right, so this is this is one of those puffy down jackets that'll make you look like the Michelin Man, right?
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. All right, so I wear that around at camp at night.
Yeah, with less exertion, gotta stay warm.
Yeah, and it's like outdoor research makes a really nice down jacket, but it goes into a pocket, so you use that as a pillow.
So another thing that John Dyer brought up, I know that we mentioned briefly the cooking in the cold weather and things like that, but he's really interested in getting some more ideas around, the challenges, some ideas, some suggestions around cooking in winter camping.
Yeah, if you're using a hot tent, you can do a lot more cooking than if you're cold camping with just a regular stove, but
Sure.
You can still make a lot of other... I do a lot of pre-made meals and then defrost them when I'm out there. For breakfast, I'll make a lot of like female bacon and maybe some powdered egg, which is just not right. But I make a lot of baking. I do a lot of baking out there because you have a lot of time at night. Because if you're in the tent at 5 or 6, since it's dark out, that's the one thing. It's dark a lot. So you have a lot of time on your hands. So Logan bread. You ever made Logan bread?
I have not. No.
Logan bread is basically a whole bunch of nutrients all together with flour and molasses and honey, and it will last forever. And it's really a solid bread that you can actually have. Bannock is really good. You get bannock with whole wheat flour, powdered milk, baking powder, and then you put some cinnamon or Cajun spice in there, and you spice it all up with that. Cheese is good, but some other meals, I'll make up a lot of pasta meals, a lot of rice meals. Curry is really good. What I'll do is I'll dehydrate my curry sauce. You can get a dehydrator, but if you don't want to buy a dehydrator, what the scouts could do at home, all the scouts can make up their own meals, which is before I go off on a more tangent, it's a really good idea for scouts, is actually do a meal planning session and have a contest. So the very first meal that all the groups make, the best wins a prize, and the worst meal has to do dishes for everybody. It's hilarious.
Nice.
And the last meal, though, whoever wins a really good prize. Mm-hmm. So what I would do is get a salsa sauce, spaghetti sauce, or curry sauce, and instead of buying dehydrator, put it on a cookie sheet at home, put it inside the oven, put the oven at the lowest temperature, like 110 degrees, like the lowest it would go, and then leave it overnight, and it will peel off like a fruit leather. And then then it's lightweight. You put it in a Ziploc bag. It can't go bad. Well, it won't go bad. It's freezing outside. Mm-hmm. So when you get to camp, though, you put a little bit of hot water back into that. It turns into the sauces. So then you put it with your rice and your pasta. You crush some peanuts on top. Well, that's not a good idea with allergies. Yeah, and you make a lot of meals that way.
Okay. Nice. Yes. So a lot of that planning. I mean, sounds like there's a lot of things that they need to do pre-work as far as a lot of these meals go. Yeah.
Well, yeah, unless you actually make a bunch of lasagnas and stews and freeze them and then bring them with you and de-thaw them.
Let's see, what other questions we got in here? How about general thoughts on socks, liners, feet care, that sort of thing?
Oh yeah, your feet. That's what gets you from A to B, right? So I mentioned these before, the liners that you wear on the bottom of your boots. Mm-hmm. But wear 2 or 3 pairs of merino wool socks. And you're letting me say this, but I wear I put lotion on my feet every night.
Okay.
Just to keep them all nice, because if your feet go all dry, that's not good.
That's when the trouble starts for sure.
Yeah, and then people say, well, I'll tough it up and everything's fine. You can tough it up in the summer. You can't tough it up in the winter. One little mistake can actually lead to some nasty stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh yeah. What about this?
Good question. So
Don't
what
go.
what
Hold
is
it
that?
Whatever you do, hold the poop in. Never go poop out there. No. What will happen is it's normal for someone not to go for 3 days when they're out camping, especially winter camping. Mm-hmm. It's not normal after that. So if you're going on a winter camp longer than that, you're going to have to convince them to go. It's mm-hmm. not healthy at all. I have no problem going. In fact, I go better out there than I do at home. But in the wintertime, though, why it's so important to talk about is people say, there's no way I'm going to go. It's cold out. Mm-hmm. But make some fun about it. Tell them, everybody, okay, this is what it's all about. This is how we go. And you don't really even need this. Now, the old way is to use snow.
Hardcore. I like it.
Well, it's actually not that bad. You use snow to, it's almost like a frozen bidet. And it's environmental. There's basically nothing left. But it's just all the layers you have to take off to go. It's a bit mm-hmm. of a problem.
Sure.
So anyway, it will all happen. And I've never really been really cold going. It's just the mental idea of going. But if you do use this, well, the one thing we do in the wintertime is when we use the toilet paper, we then use the toilet paper and then burn it afterwards, so there's no leftovers in the springtime.
Okay.
And yeah, it's not really an issue.
It's just getting over that mental hurdle of you got to do it.
Oh, but think of the story you'll have when you get home. Think of the friends you'll make, because you can say, I pooped in the woods at 30 below.
30 below.
If you do that, you get a star.
So we talked a little bit about poke sleds and moving equipment around and things like that. We briefly touched a little bit on building snowshoes and things of that nature. One thing I would want to point out is places like REI, they do a lot of rentals for winter equipment. So if you happen to have a trip that doesn't have this kind of equipment, or that you don't have access to this, it's not hard to get a hold of through. I'm sure there's others that do it as well, but the one that we've used in the past is REI, and they'll outfit your guys with snowshoes, or if you need to rent tents or heavier sleeping bags and things like that, they can certainly help you out there. But do you have any other suggestions as far as snowshoeing, if they've never done it before, a good place to start?
Well, the one thing they could try is, have you ever slept in a Quincy before?
I have, yeah. It's actually warmer than any of the other tents I've ever slept in. It's pretty amazing how well that insulates.
Yeah, I find them as warmer than a four-season tent. And the reason why it's warmer is that it's breathable, and also you actually have your own body heat keeping warm. So they say it's 10 degrees or more warmer inside the Quincy than it is outside. The problem with actually the Quincy is when you're making them, you get wet building up the snow. So just got to watch that. But what I would strongly suggest is get everybody to make a Quincy in their backyard and then try that out at night, because it's the mental thing. Because they'll try the Quincy in their backyard. Because if they get cold, they can run inside, right? And so they'll do it. They'll try it. So get the Quincy in the backyard, go inside the Quincy, and then in the morning they've survived. They run inside for breakfast, and they go, look, this is fantastic. And they really feel good about themselves, and then they want to go that extra step.
Nice. So we've talked about Quincy's. We've talked about four-season tents, hot tenting, that sort of thing. Do you have some pictures of these, right? Is that?
Oh yeah, I better show you those. Let me see. Uh-oh. Now this could go horribly wrong.
Right. Well.
But I'm going to push a button, and then you'll see some pictures.
If not,
okay.
We'll,
so now, which picture do you see now?
The snowshoes.
Oh, the snowshoes. So the difference between traditional and the new age snowshoe, it depends on the snow. Now, if there's lots of snow, then you're going to want the traditional snowshoe, the one that's going to keep you up more.
More flotation.
Yeah, but they're going to be heavy on your feet. They're not as easygoing as the new age, the lightweight aluminum or whatever metal.
Okay.
Now, getting which ones do you have? I think you could probably get some really good cheap at REI where you guys are, or MEC where we are. Some really good cheap snowshoes for kids that are, you know, the new age ones, or you can rent them. So I actually really loving winter right now because we have lots of snow. For the last few years, we haven't had enough snow really to justify the traditional ones. With traditional snowshoes too, there's so many different designs, and the ones I like is the bear paw. But the bear paw is more for the spring snow than it is for like the Algonquin stuff.
One that's a little bit heavier.
Yeah, okay, I'm blabbing here. Let me see if I can. Oops. Oh yeah, here's.
Let's see. Hey, that looks like.
Now you can see on the back there. That's a picture of the prospector tent that we take.
Okay. What kind of tent is that again?
That's the what we call the hot tent or the prospector tent. That's the snow checker. That's the I think called the base camp. No, that's called the short wall. And the one I have is base camp too. Let me see what else I can find here. And this is why you go at night.
Oh, wow.
Look at that. That's why you go winter camping. You get an image like that, it's beautiful. And then because it's 30 below, you take that photo and then rush indoors and get warm in the hot tent. A lot of people think that sleeping in a hot tent is dangerous, and you know it could be because there's a flame inside of a tent, but it's all to do with watching what you're doing, right? I think sleeping in a hot tent is safer than actually trying to survive in a four-season tent. So here's a freight toboggan, and that's all my gear for a really long trip. There's a lot of gear on that toboggan.
Okay.
But yeah, so inside there is my clothes, my food, my tent, my sleeping bag, my stove, my buddy stuff, my camera gear. So we were out there. We were out for quite a while on that trip.
Nice.
And let's see more here. Oops.
And that was the sled that was made out of the ice rink material.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, one of the best stores online to go to is the Canadian Outdoor Equipment Store. It's in Mississauga. It doesn't matter where it is. But I found that their store sells everything to do with winter camping or any other gear that you've never thought of getting. So here's a better image of that toboggan and another tent. It's a bigger tent, actually. Now, this is what we took. Lure the North, an outfitter that I know up in Sudbury, they took us out on a trip in Killarney. And that's the tent they brought. It's a snow checker, but I think 8 of us stayed in there. So we all sort of stayed in one tent, and we held that on the toboggan. And really, it's nice and cozy. We're all communal, having a good meal, talking, chatting. And,
yeah. So I got a couple of questions while we're looking at pictures.
Okay.
Let's see. Related to the spot unit, which one do you recommend? That comes from Todd Archer in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
This is a good question because I've always used the Spot by Global Star, but then I just got the Iridium InReach. So I have more knowledge and background with the Spot than I do the InReach. I can say that the Spot has been really good to me. I've never really had any problems. I've had some problems this past summer with the Spot Global Star satellite phone. It wasn't working as well as it should have. But supposedly they put up a couple more satellites, and that fixed the problem. But I haven't tried it since then. The Iridium one, I know a bunch of canoeist friends. Becky Mason, one of them. She used the Iridium one this season at Woodland Caribou with actually Ray Mears. They're from the UK, and she didn't have any problems with that. She liked that option better because you can get a message sent to you as well as you sending out a message.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I did find though the InReach was a little bit more money to spend overall than the Spot.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not sure if I answered that question, but I do know that I use the Spot more than the Iridium. I just got the InReach and haven't really tried it that much. Okay. And a lot of people will sort of debate whether you should take technology with you, and I agree with that. I agree with the problem with technology, but if you're taking youth out or a group out and you had the chance of renting something that you could save someone's life with, then you have you should be taking that. There's no real question about it.
For sure. So, in something completely unrelated, the Quincy. Do you have a picture of a Quincy?
Oh, I don't have a picture of the Quincy, but somewhere I do. But it'll take me forever to find one. But the idea of a Quincy, just so you know how to build one, just pile a bunch of snow up, and then put sticks in the top of the Quincy, and that will make sense in a second. And then you start digging a hole in the bottom of the Quincy, and then when you start digging up through the Quincy, when you hit the stick, that means you don't want to dig any further. And then you walk away from that Quincy and leave it sit for a couple hours so it'll harden before you go and sleep in it.
So you pile up the snow.
Yeah.
You put the sticks through it. You dig it all out. You let it sit. How long does it take to pile up? How long does it take to make this? This was Brian Fay's question. Was how long does it take to build a Quincy?
You're looking at a half a day's work.
Okay.
So don't stop at camp at 6 at night and hope you get in a Quincy in about a half hour. It's not going to happen. Stop at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and then you'll be able to use that Quincy by 6.
Cool. All right. Well, we're coming up on here in the Mountain Time Zone is 8 o'clock, so that means it's almost 10 for our friend to the east.
An hour went by already?
An hour went by already. Yes. So there's a lot we could still cover. I'm sure we could go on for quite a bit longer. But
and not only did an hour go by, but about $500 worth of sleeping bag apparently.
I know it's terrible. I'll show you.
So forward the bill
bag too. It's terrible.
to Clark at ScoutCircle. Yeah.
It's a big rip right down the. Oh my God.
Was that from the stove or what caused the? Oh, it was.
Yeah, my metal stove. It hooked on it, and I got excited and pulled the sleeping bag up, and down flew everywhere. It was like snowing inside here, but down.
So on our next episode, we'll be talking about winter camping gear repair and
duct tape.
For sure.
Yeah, it's a shame that Kevin probably won't come back to visit with us again. But.
I remember when I did that show, I ruined my sleeping bag. I'll never do that show again.
I did field a couple of comments. John has been watching. John's in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and he's very appreciative of the information you've been sharing, Kevin. He says with all these hats, it's like watching a wacky scout version of the Red Green show.
I signed books beside Red Green before, and I got to tell you, he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
I asked him to sign a piece of duct tape. He goes, "Oh, I've never done that before," but he did. And he was a great person to sit beside, and it was amazing.
Now,
one thing, you guys, make sure that you get those youth out. I gotta really emphasize that before we leave tonight. Make sure you get the youth out. Because if you don't, they're just going to sit and do nothing. And if you get them out in the winter especially, they'll come back with amazing stories and amazing enthusiasm and amazing characters.
Yes, and they use phrases like "this is better than Xbox," which is kind of hilarious.
I like Xbox.
Yeah, we should let everybody below the 49th parallel know who Red Green is. Because maybe not everybody knows. He said one of his favorite sayings was, he says, "A tree's just a campfire waiting to happen."
I love his tagline though. If the women can't find you handsome, at least they should find you handy, or something like that.
Yeah. Keep your sticks on the ice. And
So if you're wondering, Red Green is a Canadian television personality. And, it's worth. You can find a lot of the shows on YouTube. It's a lot of fun.
Yes.
So I'm watching the time too, and we're just a little bit over, and I don't want to keep everybody any longer than we promised. So I really appreciate you coming back and talking to us, Kevin.
Yeah.
Oh, no problem. It's great you guys doing this stuff. It's great. If anybody has any questions, just send me an email. Just go on my website at kevincallan.com, and my email's on it. Send me an email, and I answer all those questions, no problem.
Right.
I've got nothing else to do except go winter camping.
And when he comes back, he wants to talk to people.
Right. And Callan is Callan, folks. So it's Kevin Callan, Callan.com. And if we really had it together, we'd put it up on the screen, but we don't.
Right. Maybe we'll put it in the notes.
Yeah. There's a link on ScoutCircle.com to Kevin's website. So, and as we said at the outset, Kevin's also the author of 13, 14, an indeterminate number of books.
15.
That I've enjoyed a good number of, and especially if you're headed up into Canada to go canoeing, you want to get Kevin's canoe guides. They're excellent.
Nice.
Yeah. So I think, Arlen, I think we caught all the questions. I'm kind of looking through this crazy chat thing here.
So. Yeah.
I think we caught all of those. Kevin, thanks again. And am I missing anything, or can we stop this thing?
I think we're good. I'd love to talk more at some point. We'll probably have to do this again, but
yeah,
there's always more to talk about when it comes to camping, whether it's winter camping or otherwise. So
right, and folks, keep an eye on the internets, and we'll let you know what's happening in February. It's still working on it, but pretty soon we'll know what's happening for the February Scout Circle. Thanks again, Kevin.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
hey,
thanks.
Have a good day, eh?
Hey.
Thanks, eh?
All right.